Hello and welcome to Once Upon a Couch. I'm Chef Rich and today we're going to be making a replacement recipe for KFC chicken and fries. We have the Colonel's secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices which we're going to use to make a healthy alternative to KFC chicken. I also have the recipe for some of the greatest roasted potatoes that you will ever have. Let's get into it. So I was looking through the attic of my new house and I found this. The Colonel's secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices. It's completely authentic, I swear. Don't look at that too closely. So the recipe starts out with 1 teaspoon of celery salt, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of paprika, 1 tablespoon of mustard powder, 1 tablespoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a tablespoon of dried thyme, which is just a teaspoon and a half a tablespoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of white pepper, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. So now, since we're not going to be mixing this with flour, I have half the amount of pepper and salt, but you can add more at the end to taste. And now we're going to give it a mix, making sure to press out any lumps, because that won't be pleasant on the chicken. All right, keep going until it's all the same color, a nice sienna brown. Honey, is that right? Sienna? Yes, sienna brown. I like to use these hermetically sealed jars. I got these for pretty cheap at the dollar store. They have an airtight seal. And it comes with these little clasps to keep the spice nice and fresh. You could put the spice in your pantry for a quick dinner. Now we're gonna start cutting the chicken. I use a chef's knife. Don't be afraid of a big sharp knife. The sharper the knife, the safer it is because you're not doing any sawing motion. I buy my chicken from a grocery store, and a lot of the grocery store chickens will have these extra little bits of fat and gristle which we want to get rid of. So I'm gonna cut into it here and pull all that stuff that I don't want to eat out. And a lot of chicken from grocery stores also comes with a little fat pocket hidden, so you're gonna have to butcher it a little bit just to cut down on those extra calories that don't really add much. All right, be sure to remove any extra fat from the outside and along the edges too. And leaving a little bit here and there is fine. We just want to get rid of the big pockets. All right, so here I'm using chicken thighs instead of chicken breast because chicken thighs are harder to overcook and they just taste better. They do have more fat than chicken breast, but you don't want to avoid fats entirely. Animal fats and vegetable fats are fine in moderation. We just do some trimming to avoid some excess calories. So now in a dish, I'm gonna add a spoonful of the spice and some homemade pork broth here. You can use any sorts of broth or even water. I just like to be a little fancier, and gonna mix that up and add any extra water I need until I get a nice liquidy consistency, just barely liquid. We're gonna take that chicken and dip both sides into the spice mixture and put that to rest on a cutting board and do that with all 4 pieces. Now we don't want any clumps of spice on it, so that's why we put the water on, and that'll make sure the spice doesn't burn. So I'm gonna spray down my pan with a bit of oil and put the chicken with what would be the skin side down, so the flat side down. Let it cook until the skin is nice and brown, just like that. Then we're gonna give it a flip and let that cook on the other side, making sure the spice doesn't burn. There is garlic powder in this, and that does burn very easily. The chicken is safe to eat at 165 degrees Fahrenheit, but I like to cook it a bit more. And here we go, our KFC chicken. Now it has that flavor of the KFC chicken, but without all the extra calories and grease that come with the flour and oil. This is Grace's favorite chicken, especially since the whole thing, once you have the spice mix, only takes about 10 minutes to cook. Just trim the chicken, cover it in spice, put it on the stove. Pretty easy dinner altogether. If you have some extra time in the evening, then you can make some roast potatoes. This recipe of roasted potatoes takes about 20 minutes of prep and 40 minutes in the oven, but it is worth it. So I'm gonna start off with these baby potatoes. I have yellow and red for a nice color mix. We're gonna wash those thoroughly, get any dirt off, and just simply cut them in half and cut the larger ones into quarters. I'm gonna keep the skins on here because it's actually gonna reduce our cooking time and it's gonna keep them all together. Plus, the skin is high in nutrition. So I'm gonna take this over to a pot of boiling water where I'm gonna add 1 ounce of salt and half a teaspoon of baking soda. That baking soda is gonna break down the potato starch and it's gonna make them extra crispy. So we're gonna put the potatoes in and let them boil for about 10 minutes. Now onto our garlic mixture while that's boiling. So a lot of people have difficulties getting the skin off garlic. Well, there's an easy trick to it. So you just cut the root off the garlic, that's that hard part at the bottom. Then you take the clove and give it a little twist, and then the garlic skin comes off much easier. Except this one. Oh, this potato thought he could escape. Since I don't have a garlic press, I chop all my garlic by hand. So I'm gonna show you how you do that. If you have a garlic press, use that. So I chop the garlic into thin slices, and then I chop the thin slices into little matchsticks. And then I run along the side of the matchsticks to get some garlic mince. Since we don't need a fine mince, this technique will work just fine. And in fact, is a little preferable because we get little bits of garlic of various sizes. And so just chop up the remainder of the garlic and pass over with your knife a few times and give it a couple presses. So we're gonna put a couple tablespoons of olive oil, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan, swirl it around, and we put our garlic in. Even though this might look like a lot of oil, this is still much less than a fast food joint would use. And we're only using as much oil as we need to get that crispy outer texture. So we're gonna add some herbs, some savory, some rosemary, some thyme, some basil, and some oregano. But you can add whatever herbs you have on hand. Give that a swish, and we're gonna cook that until the smaller pieces of garlic just start to turn brown. Now what we're gonna do is strain the garlic and get all that oil out. And we're gonna save that garlic and herb stuff for later. We're gonna toss the potatoes in that after they're done cooking. So it's been about 10 minutes. We know our potatoes are done when a fork easily passes through them. So we're gonna strain our potatoes and we're gonna dump a few in our oil. So we're gonna mix the potatoes in the oil, and I'm gonna add a bit of extra potatoes since I have plenty of oil, making sure they're all evenly coated and there's not a lot of oil at the bottom. A little bit more olive oil in our pan, and we're gonna brush across the bottom of the pan. You can put the potatoes face down on the tray. Now I recommend using tongs, otherwise you're gonna burn your little fingers. We can put a lot of potatoes on a tray since they're just gonna stay there for most of the cooking time. And we're gonna put them right in our oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 40 minutes. All right, here they are after 40 minutes. and that is perfect. We're looking for that nice golden brown on the bottom. All right, if you want yours a bit crispier, you can put them back in. And here they are. So, put some in a bowl. And we're gonna toss this with our garlic mixture that we had from before. And you can be generous with this garlic and herb mixture because that's really good, what's gonna add a lot of the extra flavor. And we're gonna plate these up. These are scrumptious. Now I have some homemade ketchup here, which I will make a recipe video on later. But it's way better than Heinz ketchup, if I do say so myself. And we're gonna add a bit of extra salt because I like my potatoes a little saltier, and so does Grace. If you like this video and you want us to do more replacement recipes, then give us a like, subscribe, or leave a comment about what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future. This was Chef Rich, and from all of us here at Once Upon a Couch, have a good evening.
Maybe not that.